Welcome to Red's Barbershop, the place to hang out and talk about hoops. This episode of Red's Barbershop is brought to you by our sponsors, Third Eye Consulting and Coastal Plains Insurance of the Lowcountry. Now, hop in the chair because here are your hosts, Justin Jarrett and Tony Red Bruin.
Hey, the open sign is lit. We are in the shop tonight. The legend Tony Red Bruin and me, little old me, Justin Jarrett, joined by another legend and a friend of mine, somebody I've been honored to get to call a friend over the last year or so, getting to know Curry Kirkpatrick, Hall of Fame sports writer, most famously with Sports Illustrated, but he's done some CBS sports, a little bit of everything. People who follow sports media over the years have definitely gotten to know Curry, and we've reintroduced him to the world. We've brought him out of mothballs under the bus, letting him get out and flex his chops a little bit. But we've been talking about getting you in here, Curry, and reuniting you two guys who have both become good friends of mine, but crossed paths a long time ago before I knew either one of you. And it's always great to hear how you guys, how Red got to know all the people that he knows. So Curry, what's the first time you remember kind of becoming aware of Red Bruin and the legend that he was in New York?
Well, Red, it's great to see you. You know, it's been forever since I was covering your games. I actually covered your games. But I got some serious, I go so far back. I'm so old. I go back. Yeah, I know you had Dave Bing on here. One of the first things I did for Sports Illustrated, I went to a Syracuse game. I was reporting the game. I wasn't writing anything, but it was a Dave Bing game. And I remember sitting up. It wasn't even in the dome. That's how old it was.
Wow.
But, yeah, but I go, and I used to do a lot. I used to live in Niagara Falls, New York.
Okay.
Syracuse was like a home team when I was growing up.
Okay.
And then I covered a lot of your compatriots at Syracuse and had, of course, I've known Jim Boeheim forever. I saw him play. Well, he played on that team, of course, with Dave Bing.
Yeah,
so,
with Bing.
Right. Yeah, they were the backcourt. Yeah, they were the backcourt. There's so many things that you just said in that little bit of space. Makes me feel like the world is so small. I mean, as soon as you said Niagara, the first thing that came to my mind was one of my first coaches and my first high school, really, for no other better way to put it, say idols, went to the University of Niagara. Andy Walker, I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah.
He's from Queensbridge, and that's about 4 blocks away from my projects, Ravenswood. And I think he ended up playing for the Utah Jazz. And actually, I think at one point he might have even been the mayor over there, down there up there at Niagara. He was
I remember Andy Walker.
One of my first coaches, and he was really good and really tough on me. We used to play. Actually, I used to play against him at the same time he was coaching me up in Reese Community Center. And I mean, I think Andy, since he was in the 8th grade, was built like a linebacker. I mean, he came out with muscles on top of muscles, and his big thing was he always thought I wasn't tough enough, and every chance he got, he would just beat me up as much as he could. And then the other. My other idol that had went there, Roy Beekman, who not too long ago just passed away. He was a star at Niagara, and he also went to Monte Cristi, my same high school. And I had always looked up to him. And people, I guess we looked kind of similar, and was a little similar in our style of play early on. A lot of people used to ask me, was he my brother? And don't get mad at me, but I used to say, yeah, way back then. And that's how much I idolized this guy. So. It was crazy. As soon as you said Niagara, those two guys just popped in my head, man.
Well, when I was in high school, I watched Niagara play. Niagara was one of the first schools I watched. I got interested in college basketball by watching Niagara and Canisius and St. Bonaventure. They were called the Little Three then. But when I was in high school, I watched Hubie Brown, was a great player at Niagara. And not many people remember. He was a really good college player. I mean, he went on to become a legendary coach and broadcaster. And he's still doing games. He must be, I think he's over 90.
Yeah, he's got it. I think I heard somebody say he's in his 90s. And I'll tell you what, I still feel he's one of the best knowledgeable broadcasters going right now. He doesn't give you all of the fancy stuff, like hand down, man down, all that stuff. He tells you what's going on with the pick and
he
rolls,
explains what's happening in a way that you can understand.
Man.
Yeah.
Red, do you
Yeah.
still keep in touch with Syracuse, and do you ever go to games up
Oh
there
yeah,
still?
we have what they give you is like 2 passes for home games, so I can go to any of the home games that I want. I just got to call and let them know that I'm coming, and then
Oh,
when I
wow.
get there, you scan your phone and you have 2 tickets. So I try to go up there like maybe 2 to 3 times a year. Definitely one of them being the alumni game, and we all stay in touch with each other. And the last time I was there is when we had, I mean, sad to say, kind of like the send off of Coach Boeheim. We kind of knew that was going to be it behind the
Yeah.
scenes and everything. You know, I had talked with a few players, and Sonny Sparrow is kind of close to his coaches inner circle. So that was the last time that I was up there, though. You know, but we all was up there. I mean, from Carmelo to, I mean, Rex Trowbridge. I mean, we kind of knew what was going on and wanted to be part of that.
Yeah.
You know?
Can I ask you a question? I was wanted to know this from a player's standpoint. I looked it up. You played in your freshman year and your senior year. You went to the NCAA tournament, right?
Yes.
In the
My
2 years
fresh-
in between, 2 years in between, you went to the NIT.
Yeah, we lost in the NIT championship to Paul Presley's team.
Yeah.
With Nolan
coach.
Richardson. I mean, I think him and Rolly Massimino are probably the 2 of the toughest coaches that I ever played against. I mean, I know I lost about 4 to 5 pounds playing those 2 teams. I mean, they just, with the nonstop pressure they put on you, especially Nolan Richardson's team. I mean, they pressed from the tip off to the end of the game, from baseline
40
to
minutes.
baseline.
40, and he called it 40 minutes of hell.
Exactly. I mean, that's what
That
it
was-
is. I mean, you
that was
literally
Tulsa?
have to get a screen.
Well, he started at Tulsa, then he brought
That
it
was
to
at
Arkansas.
Tulsa?
Change
Yeah.
directions,
Yeah.
do something. I mean, push a man off to get free. That's how much they are on you. I mean, you know, they were legit.
Let me ask you though, was it really different playing in the NCAA? I mean, getting a bid and being thrilled to get in the big tournament,
Mhm.
and not getting in. Was it a big difference at the end of the season when you had to do that? Of course, you went to the championship game, NIT.
Yeah, it was like you got to the top of the mountain, like, you know, like Mount Everest. You thought you did something spectacular. Like, you know, we knew how good we was during the season, but between injuries and some people going into shooting funks and all different types of things happening, people having different situations, we just couldn't put it together until almost the end. But we always knew how good a team we was because we practiced against each other every day, you know. And for us to, you know, we knocked off, I think, St. John's the first game. We blew Georgetown out, you know, towards the end of the game, the second game in the Big East tournament. And then we went triple overtime with Villanova and won the
3
tournament.
overtime, yeah.
And we, like, you know, we got to the top. You know, they got to put us in the NCAA now. You know, look at the 3 teams that we beat. And we were like, now, and we're gelling just at the right time. We thought the whole nation is going to get a chance to see just how good we really are. And then we didn't get the bid because at that time, you know, we were too young. The tournament was too young. The league was too young to get the automatic berth. And I mean, there was even talk of not even accepting the NIT bid. And we was like, no, you know, we're gelling the right time. We still can go show people, you know, how good a team that we was. And the kind of mixed thing was the NIT was really not too far behind the NCAA for a while. But that was right around the Cups, where it still was a great tournament to be in. But of course, it didn't have the you know, the audience or the luster of the NCAA. So it wasn't something that teams turned down so quickly now back then. But what we really wanted to do, we really wanted, once we didn't get in, we really, really wanted to win. And I think we ran the table all the way until
on the final. Yeah. Was Boeheim playing a zone back then? Did you play zone all your years?
My first couple of years, he was more into pressing, man to man, and then the zone. He mixed it up a lot. And then, like, towards like the end of my sophomore year, junior year, it might have been because of the size that he started that. Because after, I mean, we were huge, my friend. We had like 7-foot Danny Shays, 6'11" Roosevelt Bowie, 6'9", 6'10" Louis Orr. I mean, we were huge. So it wasn't like we had to play zone because we didn't have the height for rebounds. Like, but I mean, towards my sophomore and junior year, I mean, I used to jump center. You know, and then we had like Andre Hawkins. I mean, we listed him at 6'8", but Hawk was closer to like 6'6", and he was our center.
Well, nobody ever outjumped you, right?
I mean, yeah.
I remember you in the rafters, man. You could go to the rafters.
I appreciate that, but I'm just trying to make a point on how we went from like having a 7-foot front line to like, you know, I'm like almost our power forward. So I think he might have went zone then out of you know, out of necessary, not having, you know, an option to have, you know, quality big men at that time. So I think I don't know. I can't speak for Coach, but after we got a little, after we got shorter, and he started with that zone, it seemed like he just stuck with it. It worked for him.
Yeah.
And we didn't have all the
Well,
great
it's
shooters
just-
like we have now. The game was way different then. His philosophy was, why chase guys around playing man to man until they prove to you they can shoot. A lot of times at that team, at that time, I mean, a team might have had one, maybe two great shooters. Like a Marty Head or something like that. And we had Marty and Hal Cohen and stuff like that, but we didn't have like a whole team of shooters like the way you see now. Everybody shoots the threes. The game is all different too. You know?
Yeah.
Yes, you have lamented that many times. The change in the game. And,
I guess I have to say that because it perplexes me. Because I think now, I don't think I would have any chance of playing in today's game except like I'd have to like earn my keep on defense. I'd have to have my offense come from the defense because I couldn't just see me standing at the 3-point line waiting for somebody like to penetrate and kick to me, and that's gonna how I make a living. I just don't see it.
Yeah.
No, Red like to get it to the rim. But no, Curry and our mutual friend Red, Rich Basirico, they banter about basketball a good bit. But Curry, you shared some great stories on Under the Bus this week about your relationship with Bill Walton. Tony, did you have a relationship with Walton? Did you cross paths with him ever?
No, I had only seen him personally one time, and I think me and Sydney was on a recruiting trip for UCLA, and we went to a party at Jim Brown's house, and I think he was there, and I met him, and
drop some names.
I don't think he knew who I was.
Yeah, let's hear about that story at Jim Brown's house.
Jim Brown.
Some things you can't tell to the public, but it was wild. It was like a pool party actually, and Marcus Johnson was there. It was really nice. And,
you were in high school, right? When he was,
Larry Brown and Farmer was the coaches then. And
but I mean, when Bill was at Portland doing his deal, winning the NBA, you were in high school. Do you remember watching him and being
I used to love
by?
My best memory of Bill Walton, other than the thing, I used to love David Thompson and watching those guys play like that, was when he was at Portland and they played Dr. J in that series, because that was it for me. It was just I couldn't believe how, as a big man, how the passes that he made were so pinpoint. And I used to say to myself, I don't want to say he reminded me of Danny Shays. Danny Shays reminded me of him, somebody that would come out. At that point, he wasn't dominating that low. At that point, he was coming to like the foul line, hitting guys, cutting and stuff like that. And then when he did post, he had the little jump hook and stuff like that. He was just so fundamentally sound.
Well, in 77, and then most of 78, it's about a year and a half. He was like the best player ever in the NBA. People said that nobody has ever played a year and a half like that. And then, of course,
his footwork was, I guess before he got his foot hurt, his footwork was incredible.
He was. But I go back, I started knowing Bill Walton when he was a sophomore at UCLA. And I was covering college basketball, so I did a lot of stories. And we didn't do a lot of stories of his sophomore year because he kind of sprang, into the nation's consciousness that year because nobody really knew about how great a high school player he was. You remember Tom McMillan was the guy that, he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated in high school, and he went to Maryland, and he was that's the same year Walton was doing his thing in San Diego. But so then he comes to UCLA sophomore year, and I was telling the guys the other day, he went to the Final Four. They won it all, went undefeated. They beat Florida State in the final in Los Angeles. And he kind of had, he comes into the press conference. Now, this guy, he's like 19 years old. He's just, he dismantled the entire NCAA basketball tournament. And he gets up there and he was still really shy in those days. He was stammering. But he was very standoffish and defensive about the. He hadn't played really great in the championship game, but he still won the MVP. And we were all asking him questions, and he was peppered with questions, of course. And he was getting very surly and churlish. And I wrote about this. I wrote, I said it was kind of a childish show he's putting on. So that's the way we started. And I don't know, something happened. And then the next year I got to know him and he got to know me. And I was telling the guys, John Wooden was still very protective of Walton and his players. And I was supposed to do a big profile on the team. And I was out there and trying to get together and talk to the players, and Wooden did not want them to talk to me. But Walton said, well, look, because I had known him and we kind of had this kind of friendship going because I'd written some nice things about him that year. And he said, look, meet me. And of course, his buddy was Gravely, his friend was point guard. He said, meet us behind this. There was this delicatessen kind of drugstore. A delicatessen and drugstore combination. It was a big deal in Westwood. Everybody came there. And he said, meet us in the back door by the kitchen, because he didn't want all the UCLA people to see Walton talking to the SI guy. So that's where I would interview him and Lee in this kitchen. And he got me with the other players, and I got to know him. So we kind of built this friendship up in college. And then I was telling the guys the story. Of course, now he goes to Portland as a rookie and has a couple really slow years. Then comes 77, he has this great year. Yeah. And that year, and I did a bunch of stories out in Portland, and to show what a clown he was. And this kind of it kind of was a preview of what he became as a broadcaster. One day I'm doing a live TV interview, a pregame show, a Blazers show down in the arena. They had these curtains up, and Jack McKinney, the radio broadcaster, was interviewing me before the game, and it was live. And it was going to the Paramount Theater, where people that couldn't get in the arena went to Paramount Theater to watch the game. So this was a live show, and he's interviewing me, and out from behind the curtain comes Maurice Lucas. He throws a blanket over me and pins my arms, and following him comes Bill Walton, who shoves a pie in my face. There's some pictures of it. Right on live TV. Walton pies me.
Oh man. Yeah.
And so I mean, that's the kind of guy he was, and everybody kind of found out about that when he became a broadcaster and would do all these amazing things and say this.
Yeah, the people that get to know him, from what I can see from the stories, especially now that he's passed away, just can't stop talking about, once he let you in the circle and trusted you, that the type of guy that, give you the shirt off his back. And
he was one of a kind. And
everything.
I
got a question though, since you, you know about them, what was the attraction for the big men with UCLA? Was it, I know like at Louisville, when people used to talk to me about Louisville, they would say, well, like everybody that went there as a two guard was successful. They have a system that works for their two guards, their swingmen like that. Now they had like Swin Nader, and then Jabbar, who was Alcindor at that time, and then Walton. Was it somebody, a guru that they had that they were known for working with big men, or was it?
Well, I think Wooden was the guy. I mean, he knew how to work with centers, and of course, any coach would want those two guys. Alcindor went there first, out of New York, and then Walton had become a UCLA fan, so he was recruited and went there. But I think Wooden was a great teacher of any position, and I think he probably helped Alcindor, who became Kareem, with the hook, with the sky hook. I mean, I don't think Alcindor invented that shot. I think he probably got a lot of help with it from Wooden. And then Walton was a great passer. He's kind of changed the game for centers. His imitator is Jokic. Yeah, he kind of runs the offense from point center position. He's such a great passer, and that's what Bill did.
Yeah, kind of. Reminds me kind of. I mean, I saw him towards the latter end of his career with Sabonis. Am I saying his name right? His son plays now for
Sabonis.
Arvydas Sabonis.
I mean, somebody so big, he still was like pinpoint passing, like everything. Walton was kind of like that. He could dominate you down low, and he just kill you with passes when you doubled him, and just always hit the right cutter and stuff. He just had it,
I want to tell you another personal story about Bill, about him as a human being and as a team player and a loyal guy. I heard Jim Gray on the radio, the broadcaster, Jim Gray, who was a great friend of Walton's, and who basically saved his life because Walton was in a really bad stage with his back, and Jim Gray got him some medical help from his own doctors. And Walton has always said that Jim Gray has saved my life. But anyway, Gray told this story when he was doing games with Bill for NBC, and they were out doing a Lakers game, and Jim Gray was also a writer. He'd written some story. He was the guy that broke the story that Kobe and Shaq were not getting along. And
Oh,
Jim Gray
wow.
wrote that story.
Yeah.
So Phil Jackson was always upset at Jim Gray, didn't like him for breaking that story. So they come and they're gonna do a pregame meeting, the NBC guys, and Walton is in there, and Mike Breen, the guy that's doing the game still now, and Jim Gray. And Jim Gray was about to interview Phil Jackson. He came into the chair, and Jackson sat down, and Gray started to sit down, and Jackson, who always didn't like Jim Gray, and so he says to Gray, "Every time I look at your face, you remind me of Kobe Bryant and that story you wrote. I'm not doing your interview. Get out of that chair. Just get out of that chair." And Gray got up, and Walton and Breen are there, but Gray got up and left. Later that night, Gray said Bill Walton called him on the phone and said, I want to apologize to you for not being a good teammate. He said, when Jackson did that to you, I should have gone up and grabbed his shoulder and said, you're not, you either interview with all of us or nobody. It's not, you're going to throw Jim Gray out of here.
Right.
And he said, I really should have said that. And a month later, it became public because Walton told the story in the LA Times. And Jim Gray said, no, don't do that. Because Walton's son, Luke, was on the Lakers then. So he was having to play for Jackson.
Wow.
And so Bill was blasting Jackson, and Jim Gray said, no, don't do that. And Bill Walton said, I got to. That's not the way I live my life. I got to tell this story. Because he should never done that to you.
Wow.
And then later on, Jim Gray tells another story. Later on, Gray was a reporter in Philadelphia for a long time, a broadcaster, and so he was affiliated with the Sixers, and there was in competition with the Celtics with Bird and Dr. J. So Bird didn't like Gray because he considered him a Sixer. So now Larry Bird's coaching the Pacers, and in the Pacers, and Gray comes to do another story, and he's this time he's with Walton again. And they come in, and Bird, who doesn't talk much anyway, they're in the room, and he won't talk to Gray at all. He won't talk to Gray. And Bill Walton, of course, former teammate of Bird, he goes up to Larry and he says, Larry, cut this crap out. You're a professional. Jim Gray's a professional. You got to start talking to him and cut the shit. And Bird said, and from that moment on, Jim Gray said, Bird treated him, great. He gave him all this access, and that's the power. Bill just was a loyal teammate. Because he told Jim Gray when he didn't step up to Phil Jackson, he says, I was a bad teammate.
Unbelievable.
Made up for it.
But speaking of the Celtics, where are you guys with that?
The Curry's anti-Celtics.
I'm anti-Boston team. So
he's very anti-Boston.
I'll tell you, I had a great time on one of the stories I did a long time ago. You remember John Havlicek? Great.
How can I forget John Havlicek?
Yeah.
Havlicek stole the ball.
Havlicek, but Havlicek was with the Celtics, it seemed like 30 years. And, probably one of the most popular Celtics ever. And he announced his retirement prior to his last season. And so he'd go around every place he'd go, they'd have gifts for him. And because he was such a popular, great player around the NBA. So I did a story on his last week of his playing career. And I went to, and they went to Denver, they went to Los Angeles. And so I met John, and, I hung around with him for a whole week. So it was really a great guy. And I had a lot of fun doing that. But that's about my only, I did a bunch of stuff. I was doing stuff. I'm so old. I was doing stuff when Russell was coaching. I didn't see him as a player, but he was hard to deal with, I'll tell you, as a press guy.
Yeah, I saw the documentary on him. I didn't know he was such a rounded person. He's pretty deep. Yeah, he was pretty deep.
Well, you're a big Tar Heel, Curry. We had Matt Doherty on here. We also had Sam Perkins, Big Smooth, on here. That was good times. But
there you go.
I'm curious what you remember about that 1979 high school recruiting class that Red was a part of. That's still considered probably the greatest high school basketball recruiting class of all time. And
we had just kind of like Dominic Wilkins, Isaiah Thomas, Scott, Sam Bowie, Ralph Sampson, Steve Stepanovich. I mean, I couldn't have came out at the worst time. Terry Fair.
Well, you could outjump all of them, right? I mean, this guy, you didn't see this guy, Justin, but he jumped to the moon. I mean, this guy. Unbelievable. What were you, 6'4"?
Yeah, 6'4".
4,
I used
6'5"?
to list myself as 6'5", but I was 6'4".
You were
Oh my.
lying.
Huh?
You were lying.
Put a
You
little
ever,
scare in them or something, 'cause
did you
towards
ever
the
play
end,
against?
like I said, after we lost our 2 7-foot centers, I played mostly small forward
Well,
rather than the big guard thing,
and you jumped center, right, for the
and jump
Qs?
center. That was because like my jump was quick because I jumped mostly vertical. I jumped my highest vertical rather than laterally. So mostly before those big centers even got off the ground, I was already in the air. So that was kind of my advantage with the jump ball.
Did you ever play against Dominique?
Yeah, me and
Lou
Dominique played
Wilkins?
against each other in the East-West, the McDonald's game and everything.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a jumping contest there.
Oh,
You
I'll
two
tell you,
guys.
he could
Oh.
jump though, because one time I went
Oh.
for a rebound, and I mean, I was over everybody. I mean, I felt like the ball was just about to be in my hands, and the next thing I knew, somebody came from over me and just wrecked around it. And
Is
when we
that
both
right?
got back down to the ground, I looked and it was Dominique, and I'm like, that brother's legit. Because I
Yeah,
mean, I
yeah,
don't know how high he must have been up there, because I was up there.
yeah.
You could
I
walk
knew
on
I
the
was up
sky,
there because,
man.
and I like. Like sometimes you don't have your glasses on and you think you do, and you go to put them on because you can almost feel them. That's how I felt the ball was in my hand. Like I have this. And the next
Where'd
thing
it
I know,
go?
this arm just like came like from behind me and just swooped the ball, and I turned, hit the ground and turned, and it was Dominique. He was already headed up court. I never seen he could go. He could go.
Did Boeheim recruit anybody else in your year? Was there anybody else on that
Yeah,
came
he
to
always
Cuse
used to
with
give me
you?
a hard time when he wanted to get under my nerves, and I forget the guy's name. Actually, he ended up playing for the Lakers. He went to, I want to say, Ohio State. 6'4" guard, and I feel bad now because I can't even remember his name, and he used to give me
Was
a hard time about it.
was he from New
Um,
York?
yeah, he was from New York too. I think he was from Manhattan. I forget his name. He's about 6'4", played for the Lakers about a year or two too, went to Ohio State. It's going to come, watch when we get over it, I'm going to be texting you guys back because it's going to come to me who he was. He was also Rod Foster, was it? I think
Yeah,
he ended up going for Notre Dame. He
that
was,
went to UCLA, didn't he? Rod
yeah,
Foster.
yeah. He used to give me a hard time about
He
him.
was from Connecticut, right?
Yeah,
Rod
yeah,
Foster.
yeah. He was
Yeah,
a
yeah.
great shooter, really quick and
And
stuff like that.
he played for Larry Brown when they went to the finals at UCLA.
Yeah, but I tell you, that was when it came down to the nitty gritty, especially after me and Sidney Green wanted to go to the same school together, but after
Oh,
he kind of forged an alliance with Talk and wanted to do the Vegas thing, and me and Talk didn't seem to ever click. When the few times that we talked, I really didn't get the impression that he really wanted me, but had a feeling that Sidney wasn't going to come unless I came. I really feel that I wasn't his first priority. I mean, well, obviously Sidney was his first priority, but I didn't get the feeling that I was his second.
was
And
Syracuse your first choice?
they kind of was my choice behind St. John's, to be honest with you.
Really?
And I wanted to go to South Carolina, but I wasn't going to go unless Sidney went. And the reason I was saying South Carolina was I really liked Frank McGuire. Me and him clicked
Yeah.
really well.
Oh my God, Frank
I loved
McGuire.
his style. I felt so comfortable around him. And all of my father's family is from down here where I'm at now, South Carolina. It was only 2 hours away from Columbia here. And so at that point, my grandmother and all of those, everybody would have been able to see me just if I had stayed in New York. But I just didn't think that we had enough. I just didn't want to go to a losing team where I'm chucking up, 30 shots a game and maybe even getting 30, but losing every game. I just, at that point as a high school, that was like kind of like my worst fear to go to school with, like we weren't going to win. And I was like, if Sidney comes, we could turn the program around. So then he went to like I said, he ended up making the move with Sharp. So then I was kind of stuck between thinking St. John's. I had went to all St. John's home games. I really loved Louis Carnesecca. But everybody that worked with me, every coach that I had was in my ear saying that I needed, for my style of play, that I had to go to a program and a coach that liked to run.
Yeah,
and
run.
Louis
Sure.
probably better than me. He was like walk it up, controller, point guard, half court type of guy. And the point guard did anything that Louis had to be almost like puppet, walking them up like on puppet strings and not really running. So they was in my ear with that, saying that's not going to work for you. And then, like I was just saying, Louisville had a reputation for their big guards, which was my position at that time, being successful. And I kind of liked the Dr. Duncanstein, Darryl Griffith, and kind of compared myself to him. So it kind of came down towards then, if St. John's wasn't going to be it, it was either going to be Louisville or Syracuse. And
did Frank McGuire was Frank McGuire in the picture with you, really?
Yes, yeah. He was like my number one choice, actually. If Sidney would have said, let's do it, I was there. I just didn't want to be there and have to consider myself the one like have to do everything there. That was my scenario. And again, this is high school and how I'm thinking. Coach McGuire wasn't really telling me anything other than you and Sid are our number one guy. He wasn't saying if Sydney don't come, I still got this big guy coming, or I got this. It was just you and Sydney. And then when Sydney said, Red, don't be mad at me, man, but I know you don't really like talk too much, but I'm going to go to Vegas. I kind of felt like the bride that got left at the altar. I'm like, oh shit, what am I going to do now? And then this is where I said all of that to say this. In my indecisive period between Louisville and them, and then still maybe St. John's, bunk what everybody else was saying, Coach Boeheim was everywhere I turned. I mean, I'd come out the bathroom out of Christie High School, him and Brendan Malone is there. I'd have a game in Queensbridge Projects, right in the middle of the hood. Everybody's there.
That's amazing.
There having,
it's amazing.
It's
amazing you mentioned Brendan Malone, who just died, this year. And his son, Mike, coaches the Denver Nuggets, championship coach. That's his son. Yeah. Frank McGuire is a legend at North Carolina. Of course, he won the 1957 championship. Undefeated team beat Will Chamberlain in the final. When I went to school at Carolina, I was a freshman, and Frank had just left coaching North Carolina, and Dean Smith had taken over. Yeah. And Frank was in Chapel Hill for a year, my freshman year, prior to going to the Sixers and coaching Chamberlain in the Sixers. And Wilt won a championship with Frank. It's the only championship Wilt ever won was with Frank McGuire. But I was just this freshman at North Carolina. And of course, Frank McGuire was this legendary guy. And I found out I was writing for the Daily Tar Heel, and somehow I got his phone number and called him up. He invited me out to his house. Yeah, I'm like 18 years old. Yeah. And I did a big story. I just sat around talking to Frank McGuire and did a big story on him. So, and then of course he goes to South Carolina and, nearly gets to the finals with Roach and that great team, Tom Owens, all New York guys again. Yeah. And I did big stories on that team too. So I got to know Frank really well.
Yeah, I felt so comfortable with him, man. I mean, even his wife, just like, even though we were in South Carolina, I just had a New York feel with them and felt right at home. And he was like, I think your only weakness is your long range shooting, and I don't want you to worry about that. He says, if I got to be out there feeding you the ball myself 1,000 times a day, you're not going to have to worry about anything. I've seen you play 100 times. I know, you're going to love it. I mean, everything he said really clicked. And I'm like, Sid, Sid's like, we're going to do this. And he kept stringing me along. So kind of knew something else was going on. And I guess talk was in his ear with all the, everything that glitters is gold.
They had heavy bags out there in Las Vegas.
In Carolina or something.
Well, let me tell you my Boeheim. Let me tell my Jim Boeheim story. I mean, it goes so far back with him. And did tons of stories. But one year, we made Gary Payton of Oregon State. Remember the great defensive player? Made him a college player of the year. Named him college player of the year, late in the season, put him on the cover. So Boeheim was furious, of course, because he had DC. That was DC's year. So I cover Syracuse plays Georgetown for the championship of the Big East on a Sunday afternoon. And Georgetown wins the game. But they come in and there's a big press gathering after the game. Boeheim comes in. I'm so proud of this because both coaches killed me, both of them. In front of the national press. And in fact, I'm standing next to Spike Lee because he was a big, he's a big Georgetown honk. Yeah. So he's at the Syracuse, but it's at Syracuse. So Boeheim comes in, and somebody starts to ask him a question. He says, "Just a minute," and he points at me and says, "Kirkpatrick, you know that Gary Payton is not the college player of the year Derek Coleman is. I mean, he got all this. He's just played the game of the year, and he goes after me for that. It's hysterical."
Yeah. Coach doesn't let anything go. I'm telling you, how he is.
He gets paid for that, and now John Thompson comes into Georgetown, and he kills me for something. He says, "Kirkpatrick, get out of here. I'm not talking." Because I was always writing stuff about Georgetown when they had.
You needed Bill Walton there to stand up for you.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
And I was there. I don't know if you played in this game when they lost. Boeheim lost another game in the Big East tournament in the Garden. He came into the press conference. He came up on the podium. He took the chair and he
Mhm.
threw it across the rim before it even started. He said,
No,
"Next
that
question."
wasn't us. It sounds like
Any
him, but
other
that
questions?
wasn't one of our
Yeah,
games. Yeah,
he thought he got screwed by the referees. He throws the chair across from him. He says, "Next question," and
yeah.
then we're
We
all
had
laughing.
we had one Big East tournament at Providence. Then we had the one that we won at our place. And then we had one at we had, I think the last two were in the Garden. So yeah, so he changed it around. And that's when they started having them at the Garden after that for the last two.
The Big East tournaments. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Well, when we
No,
had Boeheim on our show, he stood us up the first time, and we
yeah,
couldn't
he
figure out
got
why.
sick. Yeah, yeah,
His assistant couldn't get in touch with him, and we found out the next morning that he had had some dental work done earlier in the day, took
yeah.
some pain medication, and
And he was
conked out.
knocked
So,
out. Yeah, yeah.
to his credit, he
Oh
came
yeah.
back the next morning and
Oh,
did
that's
a
yeah.
great interview.
Yeah.
So,
Oh yeah,
that was
we
good
got
times.
to make sure that we stay up with Title IX. We had Felicia Leggett, Coach Jack, the
We
Oh,
did.
yeah.
head coach. We had her on too. You know, that
You're
was
gonna
great.
have to pull us a WNBA
Yeah,
connection,
yeah,
Red.
yeah.
Now that the WNBA is at the forefront, we were
Yeah.
talking earlier about Caitlin Clark getting a little spicy tonight. But I think all three of us have become bigger women's basketball fans over the last couple of years because of Caitlin and of course being here in South Carolina. That
Yeah.
Gamecocks team has been so much fun to watch. But
Yeah.
it's fun to watch the women's game. Curry, you and the guys out under the bus have definitely talked a lot about the fact that even a few years ago you would have not had the time of day for the women's game, but now you find it pretty thrilling.
But now, but Caitlin's must-see TV. I mean, Iowa when they played last year, you had to watch her because she's just spectacular.
Yeah, actually, I definitely want to do a show on it. I was just telling Just earlier today, I'm going to do my homework, so I come with you with some stats and stuff. I just don't want to come with just the stars' names. I want to come also with who's putting the work in and talk a little bit about it. I think this is the year is really hot for them, and they need to strike and try to see what's out there. I think as big as streaming is getting with all of these leagues now getting new TV contracts and stuff, I think if they can do this right,
there's
they
opportunity.
can elevate the game to at least where the women are. I mean, I don't think they'll ever make anywhere close to NBA salaries, but what they're making now is paltry. Paltry for a professional
They're
sport.
making like teacher salaries right now.
Yeah.
Red, are there any Cuse players in the WNBA?
We just had one that was released, Daisha Fair. She just got in her first game with the Las Vegas Aces. She had finally got in. I think she scored 1 point. And she got released 2 days later. She was like the third all-time scorer for college.
Wow.
I just think
she can't make it.
She went. I mean, it's kind of different from the NBA where the worst teams, pick first in the draft. So you have a great chance of making a team because the team is not that good. But here she is as a great player, but went to an even greater team. But I think she'll catch on with, she'll be able to go to a team that's probably not as good as Vegas and catch on, or definitely go over to Europe and make some big money. But she's really good. I mean, she was the third time all-leading scorer in the NCAA.
Well, one thing that bothers me about the league is, these veterans are coming out and kind of being critical and envious of Caitlin, and saying stuff about her, some negative stuff. They got the money that she's bringing to that league, the attention, the eyes. I mean, and now they're flying. They're flying planes. They're flying charter planes now, right? That's all because of Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
Well, and like every deal she gets, like that sets a precedent for a WNBA player.
Pumps up everybody. I know.
Yeah, I'm not saying don't go at her hard or try to prove yourself against her. But what I'm saying is you can't be like embrace in the paper saying, well, she ain't this or she's only getting that because this and that. I mean, you're like, cutting off your nose to spite your face. I mean,
that's right.
You got to ride that.
Embrace her.
Yeah. Kind of like not to this degree, but I'm just using it as a small example. It's generated some interest with the little bit of friction that her and Angel Reese had with the "you don't see me" thing. It's the smallest thing can spark a fire. It's all it takes is is a spark, and that got a whole generation of new fans. And you got to find a way to go with it.
Well, Angel went after Barkley a couple of weeks ago. Barkley kind of reprimanded the girls for getting on Caitlin. And talking about what she's brought. And she's brought them these charter planes and the rest. Right. And Angel said something after she had a big game and said something about about what Barkley said. She goes after anybody. I mean, she's not afraid of it.
Well, I thought about that, and then I remembered Angel is under Shaq, so Shaq probably might have put that in her ear. Shaq's got her with that Reebok deal, so
that's right.
That's her
LSU
mentor.
stuff.
So got that LSU connection for sure.
LSU, yeah.
Give Chuck a hard time. But yeah, I definitely would like to come back on and do some WNBA stuff too. This was great. Man.
Right on. Well, anything else for it, fellas, before we call it a night? Curry, you got anything else for Red? Red, you got anything else for Curry?
Well, I just want to say it was great seeing you again, and I always remember you.
Well, you don't look any different, man.
You're one of the legends, man.
I do remember.
Hey, well, you still have some hair.
When you had a little shock, of red hair. I do remember. I was wondering why they call this guy Red, and then I remember your shock of little red hair sometimes.
Yeah. This is great.
But it was great watching you. I mean, have you got any tapes? Do you play any tapes of your games on this show?
Yeah, for some reason I don't know. I think I really wanted to be. I haven't been able to put them on this show yet. I got to get with Justin for all that fancy stuff, but I have some stuff on social media and some highlight stuff. But
Justin's
for some reason, whenever we played on TV, I got the MVPs.
I've seen it. I've seen it. I've known Red now for almost 20 years. So when I was first introduced, I met him in 2005 when I first moved out here. He was coaching basketball at Hilton Head High School with Greg Elliott.
Yeah.
And
went out to cover stuff with Coach Morrow and stuff.
I went out to cover a football game at Hilton Head High with Jeff Kidd, my sports editor at the Island Packet, and introduced me to Red Bruin. And I didn't really know who that was, but I went back and looked him up and said, "Holy crap! Like this guy is something else." Oh yeah, and got to know Red really well.
Vaquero sent us some sneakers. Was that you that did the article? I thought it might have been you that did the article. When Sonny Vaquero has sent me some sneakers that I gave to our kids on the AAU team. Was that you that did the article on it? Somebody
I did a huge story on Sonny. In fact, the movie was taking a lot from my story. I was pissed off. Excuse my French, but that wasn't in the movie. I'm big buddy Sonny's forever.
Okay.
This is the recurring theme. You're also mad you're not in the Stan Smith movie.
Exactly.
I thought that was Sonny. When I first got down here, Mr. Curry, I did start at I didn't start it, but I went in with an AAU team with a good friend of mine and a great guy in the community, Jay Morrow at the Carolina Ballers. And I just took a chance with Sonny because when I was coaching in Schenectady Community College, he had also sent our guys some Adidas. So I said, hey, I'm not doing college down here, but I've got a starter up AAU team that doesn't have a sponsor team. We're trying to get with either somebody, but we've got to get a high school American first to get one of these schools to want us or one of these sneaker programs to want us. And Sonny just sent us 2 cartons of sneakers.
Oh my God!
Thing I know it was I think it was in the Island Packet or the Bluffton Today or somebody like that. And I knew that's when you was doing a lot of heavy writing, so I thought it might have been you.
I don't remember writing that, so it must not have been me.
Okay. Well, I did the Sports Illustrated story, but he's the man. I mean, he became, the guy in basketball to go to. And I love. Did you see the movie? I loved the movie.
Yeah, I just caught some of it last week. It's on Prime now.
Well, I kid him. He doesn't exactly look like Matt Damon, but
that's probably who he demanded to play him. But it was my pleasure.
Thanks a lot for having me on. Thanks a lot. It's great to see you again, Red. We got to do this again.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll have to get you two guys together in person one of these days. We'll go grab lunch or coffee, and
that'll be cool.
Let you guys shoot it together in person. But great to have Curry Kirkpatrick on the show, crossing over in the Lowco Media Network. The Under the Bus star Curry the Kirkpatrick coming into Red's Barbershop. A little cross promotion and sharing some great stories. I love to listen to both of you guys tell stories about the good old days, and it was fun to listen to you interact tonight. So thanks, fellas. It was a great time. Thanks so much to our sponsors, Third Eye Consulting, Peter Haber. We appreciate you, bro. And Mark McDonald over at Coastal Plains Insurance of the Low Country.
Mark is a great guy.
Oh, yeah, great guy. I saw Stone graduated from Lafayette a couple weeks ago. So great to see that. He's out in the world now. So and he recruited Hilton Head Prep's new football coach.
Did he?
Fadden, coming down from Colgate. Yeah.
Okay.
He coached Stone up at Lafayette and then went to Colgate. And he's coming to Hilton Head Prep. So that's pretty exciting. Steve Fuller getting back out there on the staff too.
Wow.
How about that? Yeah.
Where at Hilton High School?
Hilton Head Prep. Yeah, I hear
Prep?
he's working with the quarterbacks over there.
Oh my God.
Lots of exciting news here on Hilton Head. But thanks again to our sponsors. Thanks to all of you for showing up to listen or watch. It's great talking with Tony Red Bruin and Curry Kirkpatrick. That's going to do it for tonight. We'll have another episode coming out over on the Podbean platform, as well as on the Lowco Media Network right here on StreamYard, on Facebook, Twitter, wherever you find us, also on YouTube. So that's going to do it for tonight. We're turning off the lights here in the barbershop. Till next time, go Lowco.
Take care.
All right.